Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessino. How are we all feeling today? I think we're all kind of sick of hearing about this Super League madness, but obviously there's still some things that are ever changing in the situation. Yesterday Arsenal, pulled out or, exited the Super League after kind of holding on tight for a while. So I'm really glad to just at least feel like we're out of the situation. So I don't think that this is the end of the Super League or seeing a tournament like this being proposed in a couple of years. I think that's ultimately what these the powers that be actually want, but they're not able to get it over the line because they're all greedy. So but for now, no Super League. um I've been seeing kind of on Twitter that people are saying, well, at least people now know that Kroenke is the issue. And I don't necessarily feel like, up until this point, people didn't know that Kroenke was the issue. I think what happened is that there was almost like a sense of numbness. People had kind of felt like, well, what can we do? To change this. We can't do anything. He's in power. So we almost became just kind of like apathetic to the entire thing. And it's just I think what this did was it gave Arsenal fans the feeling that they have power in this, and their voice, is loud and it is important. And if we go out and voice our opinions, we can make things happen. So my biggest thing is that, although this feels like a really big win, the job is not done. I do have questions whether, fan criticism was as big of a deal for these owners to kind of kibosh the whole Super League. I think it was a factor. I don't know if it was the only factor. That being said, I like that the fans feel like they have a voice and they want to attempt to make things happen with the club, and to change the club. So it doesn't really matter now. The fans need to feel that way, and we need to continue. It's like it breathed life into the fans and gave the fans the feeling that they have a voice. So we need to carry that forward. On Friday at 6 p.m. UK time, there will be a protest outside of the Emirates, a Kroenke out, which is, I think the interesting thing about this is that the protest was initially going to be a Super League out, anti-Super League protest. And now it has quickly shifted to a Kroenke out protest, which I think is the most pinpoint issue that we can go after in a very high profile protest, because this is going to be, heavily documented. There's going to be a lot of big names and big people in and around this protest that are going to really be trying to push the issue against Kroenke. He needs to feel the pressure. And the longer that this goes, he's going to hope that we just kind of forget about it, or because we feel like we got something out of this and the Super League didn't happen, that all is forgotten. And all is not forgotten. We have to continue to apply pressure on the Kroenkes so that they will sell, which is ultimately, I think, what the majority of the Arsenal fan base wants. Ed says, very happy this attempt to create the Super League failed. Yeah, for sure. I think the threat of banning players from playing in national team and possibly even throwing clubs out of this year's Europa competition played roles too. I think it's a combination of things. It's obviously, I think the criticism did have something to do with it, as well as Boris Johnson getting involved. I think some of the sanctions, or some of the consequences that were going to come their way via UEFA and the Premier League. I think the Premier League and UEFA really stood firm on a lot of the things that they said. And the Premier League teams leaving, to me, really signified that the Premier League was not playing games. They were like, you can't come back. And the consequences are still coming. I think that's definitely something that needs to be talked about, is that the other 14 teams really do want, the 6 Premier League teams that tried to break away to have major consequences, points deductions, possible relegation, fines, the whole nine, so this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. But if the Kroenkes have to pull out of their own pocket to make this right, that might also be a reason why they maybe would want to consider selling the club, so yeah, and it's just unfortunate that it will hurt the fans, whatever happens in terms of, point deductions, if they were to come to fruition, that kind of thing. But, when you make big decisions like this, you have to think about all the consequences. New Dawn Game says you don't halt the offensive when the enemy's retreating. You keep pushing and press the advantage. Yeah, for sure. I think that's what's important, is that we can't feel like, okay, well, we've won, so now rest. They've showed that they don't care about the fans. I don't know how you come back from. I mean, we knew it, but this was probably the most egregious way to show that, to the fans, by essentially saying we're going to take the game away from you, which is a game that they don't care anything about. So that's really offensive. And calling the fans legacy fans, putting them in this box of, let's just toss away these legacy fans, that was super offensive and deceitful. So I just don't understand how they come back from this. And I do agree with you, New Dawn Games, that it's time to press the issue. We need to keep the pressure up. Static says, "Hey Jess, hey Static. It's not over until Kroenke officially leaves Arsenal. I would definitely celebrate once he's officially gone, but we'll keep fighting to get them out." Exactly. Arsenal presser says these big clubs will be back in a few years' time with another proposal. They'll just try to package it in a more discreet way. Exactly. And, we also saw that, earlier when they were talking about the Champions League formation, or the new Champions League that was proposed for 2024, which is really why we're here. I personally think that this is it's similar to what was proposed earlier, but I think the issue really was about money. Who is going to get the majority of the money from this newly structured Champions League competition? And UEFA and the big teams were fighting, and these elite clubs took a really big risk. I tweeted earlier that a article came out in the Times that let me just kind of pull it up here for a second, because I thought it was really interesting that this has really backfired on Arsenal in the biggest way, more than any of the other top 6 teams, because we're the furthest away from Champions League. I mean, we haven't qualified for Champions League in 5 seasons, and we can barely qualify for Europa now, and essentially this new Champions League is going to include coefficients, and allow for 2 automatic qualification spots for elite clubs that don't qualify for the Champions League, which is Arsenal. That is what we want. We want to be able to qualify for a competition that we don't qualify for, really, so we want to buy our way into it. And so they were going to use the coefficient system, and it's based on, past European successes. So although we've never really won a European trophy, getting to, the last 16 or getting to the final and qualifying for Champions League all goes into your ranking for the coefficients. So the Champions League was going to add 2 spots for that. Now that all of the clubs, the 12 clubs that have been a part of the Super League, don't have any representation in UEFA and the ECA, they are pushing to get rid of that coefficient system, that if they had not pressed for the Super League, that would have went through, and clubs like Arsenal would be able to qualify for the Champions League without having to actually qualify. So although I think it's not right, for Arsenal to qualify for something that they didn't earn, meritocracy is big in sport, and without it, it's really just glorified content. So, but if the Kroenkes were looking for a way to shortcut their way into the Champions League, they just kind of shot themselves in the foot, because now, the other clubs are really pressuring for, UEFA to completely get rid of that coefficient system that would have went through had they not pushed for the Super League, which I thought was really really interesting. And because they know they're not going to invest to the level that would be necessary, for us to qualify. So I think that shows the desperation from the Kroenkes, that they were pushing through something that would essentially just keep us in a competition that we don't naturally qualify for. And so if they are that desperate, this is the time for us to kind of push forward with Kroenke out. They take away that coefficient system. They know they're not going to invest enough for us to get to the Champions League. They barely, invest now, if you even think they invest at all. Let's see. Aaron says, "Where's Josh Kroenke, by the way, the guy who's supposedly in charge of Arsenal?" So, to my knowledge, I think that it's like these rich families, they have these portfolios of teams, and investments that they have. And to my knowledge, Josh has been given Arsenal, which is Stan Kroenke's least interesting. For him, it's the least interesting investment in their profile. So he's out here just kind of like this rich kid, that's faking it, and Arsenal is having to deal with their incompetence and the fact that they don't actually care about Arsenal. Like, think about that for a second. It's like you gave your probably least qualified employee, which is your son, it's never really done anything like this before, our file, and now he's just kind of shitting the bed with it. And he told us to be excited. Be excited for what? What are we excited about? Like, since you've said that, nothing has really happened except for you bought a couple players here and there. But I mean, nothing to really be excited for. But Josh, I don't see anybody from KSC really stepping up and taking ownership for this. The communication that came via the Arsenal website last night was very, it was from the club, which the club is a bunch of different people together, but it doesn't add any sort of accountability to it because it wasn't signed by a specific person. So the club is just like kind of this thing in the ether. So it comes from the PR team that has carefully constructed a message that would make the fans feel better about it. They knew that they needed to apologize, which I'm appreciative of the fact that they decided to apologize instead of just what's the word? Just kind of saying like, well, we're out, but I don't anticipate the Kroenkes really coming out and saying anything the way that FSG did, and seeing that whatever his name is, I don't even know what his name is, came out and did a video and kind of took ownership of it. That was better. But regardless of how the communication is or what the PR teams are putting out there or how much accountability they put out there via social media, the fact is that they tried to take football away from us, and you can never forget that. Let's see. Tony says, "Do you feel like the whole Super League announcement was rushed? Like they announced trying to get ahead of the league?" It felt like it was rushed because they knew that they were negotiating the new Champions League structure for 2024 that I kind of talked about earlier. So because they weren't getting what they wanted, because this is all about a bunch of really rich people fighting for more money and power, and the clubs didn't feel like they were getting what they deserve, because UEFA is also a bunch of crooks, so I think they rushed it to try to force UEFA's hand, and it backfired on them. Ultimately, they had a little bit of leverage there, but because, some of the teams, Chelsea and Man City decided to bail, they lost a lot of that leverage, and really not getting Bayern Munich and PSG on their side was kind of already, illegitimized this entire thing. So I feel like the announcement was rushed to try to force UEFA's hand with these whole negotiations for the new Champions League structure. And although what was proposed earlier this year and what is proposed now is not that much different, I think behind the scenes, the difference between who gets what in terms of the money is what's actually being fought over. Let's see what you guys are saying. Alexander G says, "After KSC out, then what? another shady billionaire. Yeah, I don't know. I know some people were like, "Oh my gosh, Jessica, you were saying Dan Gotti," but for the most part, it was just I'm just joking. Like, I do feel like we need another owner, but I wanted to kind of talk about this with you guys too. What is a good owner to you guys? I personally feel like there's no um ideal owner, or the ideal owner that we want doesn't really exist. I think you get the Kroenkes or you get Abramovich. It's very unlikely to me that there's an owner that loves Arsenal, that's not some sort of crook, is going to spend all of his money on this club and take us back to the top of the Premier League and win us trophies. I think that that's idealistic, and maybe there is somebody out there like this, but what is a good owner to you guys? They all to me are shady, but it's what kind of shady do you want? So I agree with that, Alexander, that it will maybe be another shady billionaire, but also probably the most important part of this is making sure that the fans have some sort of stake in the club. The 50+1 that they have in Germany really stops this whole American, taking over these clubs and turning them into whatever they want. That kind of takes away from that, so it combats that, stops it from happening. So I think that's more important to me. But in terms of just the ownership group that would come in and take over from Stan Kroenke, what does that look like to you guys? Let's see. N5 librarian says fan ownership. Exactly. That's more important than anything. The fans having ownership in the club is the only way that I think the fans will start to build back trust, because all of these owners are shady and all are invested from self-interest, so we can't get to a point where we're looking for this perfect person that doesn't really exist. Here's an interesting comment from okay, so Michael says, can we get an oil rich country owner like City? I mean, ask yourself this question, like, if you could, without thinking about it too deeply, if you could just trade Stan Kroenke for Sheikh Mansour, would you do it? And do you think any City fan would say, actually, the money that we're getting is probably, maybe dirty money, or it's not right for us to just be able to buy whatever players that we want. So yeah, we'll just take an owner that's not going to invest. No, I think it may be the high road to say, like, no, I don't want somebody, I want to, somebody that's going to help us develop this great structure and all this kind of stuff. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we want somebody who's going to invest. And if Sheikh Mansour wanted to buy Arsenal, we'd probably say yes, because I don't think there's a lot in between Stan Kroenke and Sheikh Mansour, in terms of ownership. Yeah, Ed says Leicester has a good owner, Thai billionaire, but really understood English football. Family has continued to run the club well, even after the patriarch died in a helicopter accident. But I do agree with that Leicester has great ownership and they do all the right things. But Leicester is also a different type of club than Arsenal. Arsenal has a very rich history, and there's a lot more expectation for Arsenal, which I think opens us up for more a different type of owner to come in, because we're such a big brand, but would Arsenal accept an owner similar to the Leicester City ownership group? Would they? Would they want somebody like that? I'm not sure, because they don't necessarily spend a lot of money. They spend right, but would the fans want that? Would they want, the Tielemans and the Iheanachos of the world, or are we going to sit here and act like we don't want big name players to come into Arsenal? So um, that's a really good point. But I don't know if Arsenal, in terms of the club, in terms of the club executives and the people that would be hiring or getting in bed with this ownership group, and the fans would accept a Leicester City owner. I'm not sure. Velocinac says, well, he gets a lot of hate, but Hoffenheim, was kind of perfect for the club. He was a patron, though, more than an owner. But would Arsenal, the business brand, bring in an owner that didn't have this huge portfolio and wasn't look at Liverpool, Manchester United, and Arsenal, the three biggest clubs in England. Rich history, been around for a long time, won a lot of titles. Look at this. Like, we all have American ownership, and I think that speaks volumes, to the types of clubs we we are part of, attract that type of ownership because of the brand. So it would take some I think, renegotiating in our minds what we want from an owner and what we want from our club, and not going back. If we got an owner like that loved the club but didn't have that shine to them, and they wanted to build from the ground up, there is a part of the fan base that I feel that wouldn't want that. I think there's a lot of Arsenal fans that want just the investor, somebody who's going to spend a lot of money, so I don't know, is it more about ambition? Is it more about getting back to the roots of the club? I don't think you can really do both, if that makes sense. AK Gunner says benefactor model, invest, infrastructure, community, and men, women, and youth team. Nice. So those are all the things that you kind of want, with the infrastructure from a new ownership group. Yeah, I think I think a lot of us would want that. I have to think about it a little bit more, of what I truly want, because one minute, if I'm watching us play and we look like crap, I might be like, just get me a shake, so, but I think deep down, I would want somebody who cares about the club. And, if there's a long-term goal where the infrastructure and the community and everything is taken into consideration, that feels better for me. It feels more Arsenal-like to me. I don't think a shake makes sense for Arsenal, but again, I could be watching Arsenal play like crap and just be like, give me a shake, so I'm a typical fan, just like you guys. I definitely have my moments, where I don't think critically, I don't think balanced, but I don't think it's up to the fans to always be balanced and rational and whatever. Fandom is not supposed to be balanced and calm. It's really on the edges, isn't it? So I don't blame any fan for just one day being like, yeah, I would take a Leicester like owner, and then the next minute be like, what is Mansour? Does he have any brothers to come and buy this this club? So yeah. Alexander says the 50+1 model in Germany works only if you have good football management structure. Schalke has 50+1 and just got relegated 3 years after the Champions League. That's definitely something that has kind of gone under the radar. I love that comment, but Mustafi and Kolasinac have been involved in some sort of row, with the fans. They were relegated from the Bundesliga. They're going into the Bundesliga 2 next season, after their 1-0 loss to one of the other teams that are, I think, towards the bottom as well. And they were chased by fans like down the street. Super dangerous. And, as much as I don't love those players, that is completely unacceptable for fans to be chasing players down the street, so I hope that they're well and they haven't gotten injured or anything like that from that. But that's some shocking news that I saw this morning that has completely went under the radar. There's a lot of things that have actually kind of went under the radar because the Super League, has been such a big topic of conversation. Jonathan Sinclair said it's not about spending money, it's about showing ambition. So what is outside of spending money, what does showing ambition mean? Is that, making relationships with other clubs in other countries for recruitment reasons, so that we can get young, maybe unearthed talent? Does that mean, investing in the women's side of the game as well? Does that mean, what does that mean for you guys? Better facilities? What does that mean in terms of ambition that's outside of just spending money? Yo-Yo says the Americans knew to target heritage and culture. Foolish people rejected Usmanov. Oof. Big words there. Yeah, I think the Americans wanted the best clubs and the biggest clubs, the ones with the biggest brands, but also, they wanted to be able to commercialize that culture aspect. I was listening to Tim Stillman talk about, the brand of Arsenal is much more than just, the crest and, the logo and all that. It's even things like the Invincibles, the words Invincibles mean something for Arsenal. And the American owners, they target that type of thing and they commercialize it and make it shiny, so that they can make a lot of money off of it, which is really gross when you think about it. Not surprising, but gross. Ed says, I think if we had an LCFC level owner who just ran the club better and invested a little would greatly improve the team. We have more base income than Leicester from tickets and commercial revenue. I'm not saying that I think the Leicester model is perfect. I've always look at Leicester and I'm very envious of what they've been able to build over the years as maybe a not so big team or not so big club. But we can't say this now. And then if we were to get an owner like this, be like, well, just spend the money, because Leicester doesn't spend money like that. They spend smart. They have really smart buys. And I do think there's a section of the fan base that just is kind of like, let's just hurry up and get there. So I like that model, because we've seen that you can't really cut corners unless you spend a lot of money. And I'd rather have a more solidified, I want us to be financially secure, have the infrastructure that makes sense, the right management, and I want the players to be happy and the fans to be happy and the fans to feel important, but yeah. I mean, you see with Sheikh Mansour, he jumped on, the Super League, so he doesn't necessarily care about the fans either. So you got to take that into consideration. Abramovich as well. Velvet Schwan says the world ain't ready for Ty and Miguel on Friday. Oh, you mean at the protest? Are they all going to be there? Is that for the protest? Are they actually going to be there? So I know a lot of people are going to be there. And again, the protest is outside of the Emirates at 6 p.m. UK time. But one thing I do want to say is that if you do go, please be safe. Don't hurt each other. Don't get violent. Just say what you want to say, voice your opinion, and be aware of people coming for other things outside of protesting. I'm very leery about big groups of people and things happening that shouldn't be happening. So please be safe and tell your friends to be safe, because the last thing I want to hear is about somebody being injured or hurt or abused outside of the Emirates because of this whole protesting thing. But go if you have the ability to go. Belbashwan says, football is back now, so I can banter Arsenal. Oh, good for you. Good for you. I mean, it's not like we weren't being bantered the entire time that the Super League thing was happening, So Sean says, we need owners who feel like the fans do. Yeah. I just wonder if those owners really exist. Even Dan Gotti has said things like, he really cares about Arsenal. He's an Arsenal fan, but ultimately people that get into business at the highest level of football always have self-interest, and, you don't get to be a billionaire, which is pretty much what's required to be able to own a club at this point. By just, pouring into the fans and being like everybody else, and so, I wonder who that would be. I'm sure there's somebody exists, but I'm not even sure if that person would be considered, Bjorn says, we all need to be real. The UEFA, FIFA, FA, and the club owners of the big six do not care about us fans at all. I agree with that. I think that this has shown that they don't care about the fans. And that's really a sad truth, but it is, they plotted to take football away, so no matter what they say from here on out, we have to remember that they put us through probably the worst 48 hours that they possibly could have. Bjorn says, Dan Gotti will not be better than Kroenke. And 5 Librarian says, it's worth noting the excellent work of the Arsenal Supporters Trust in recent days and many years. Yeah, for sure. I saw that they are getting a lot more membership and, from the influx of fans that are actually, they are committed to not spending money at Arsenal, from their overseas memberships and things and transferring that over to the Arsenal Supporters Trust and all of the support groups, that have been working over the years, pretty much preaching the same message over and over again that weren't being heard are now being heard now. And they're getting a lot more membership from this. So, yeah, they've been doing really good work, as you've said in the recent days and many years. And if you guys are not a part of a supporters group as of now, get signed up and let's keep this thing rolling because there's a lot of work to do still. New Dawn Game says, what happens to Richard Garlick now? I get the feeling that he was brought on by KSE due to their plans for the ESL. I don't even know, to be honest, because the guy, he's just kind of like new to the whole scene. I'm not really sure, but let's just see what the next couple of days kind of brings. A lot of things can change in the next couple of days. I'd be surprised if we didn't see some shifts, so we'll see. We will see. Name Block says, our team isn't even built for the Champions League. This time we'd be getting 15-0 in one game. Yeah, so, I thought it was really interesting that a lot of fans were really concerned about would we be competitive in this Super League, and obviously probably not, as competitive as we would like. If there's the biggest indicator of what we would look like in a Super League to me is looking at the Kroenke's other franchises and seeing that they're not really ever concerned about winning anything and they don't do anything to win. They're very content just having the team and letting the money roll in. But it's funny, because would it just make it better if we actually qualified on our own merit? Because if we win the Europa League, we would be in the Champions League, was essentially the exact same thing, only in just tournament format. So does it matter if we qualify, through our own merit and still get battered? How do you guys feel about that? Because essentially, if we win the Europa League, we'll be in the Champions League with pretty much the team that we have now. So that doesn't really sound very good, does it? AK Gunner 49 says, if you had 10 billion, would you buy Arsenal or keep the cash? I don't know if I want the stress of owning Arsenal, to be honest. I just want to be an Arsenal fan and I don't want the fans to hate me, so I think I'd keep the cash. Why would I, as much as I'm like, yeah, that'll be so cool to, I say this all the time. I feel like, yeah, it'd be cool to be Arsenal's manager. Have you seen how Arteta looks now? He's had the job for 13 months or so, and he's not that fresh, tanned, awesome haired looking dude anymore. He's graying up and he looks tired, so do I really want that stress? Probably not. I'll keep the money, but maybe I'll send some money, to the team somehow or something, invest in some way, but I wouldn't want to own it. No way. Alexander says, Jess, can we just take a minute to laugh at Spurs and Mourinho? Yeah, I was saying this. I was like, we didn't really get a chance to actually laugh about the Mourinho thing. Jokes on Spurs, it's insane. They brought in Jose Mourinho, calling him Trophy Mourinho, because he wins a trophy in the first year everywhere that he goes. And he gets to the final of the Carabao Cup or the League Cup, and they don't even let him manage the game. And I think the rush to fire him may have had something to do with the Super League. Maybe Levy felt like this influx, this injection of cash was coming, and now he has to pay out Mourinho anyway without that money and being in severe debt because of the new stadium that they built. Oh my gosh, losers. It's so funny. Like, Spurs is the joke that keeps on giving. It's just, what were they thinking? How did they feel like this Mourinho appointment was going to go? History would show you that it's not going to go well. It was a very expedited version of a Jose Mourinho tenure. Usually it starts going a little wonky in year 2, and then year 3, it completely just capitulates. Year 2, it's complete, had a complete implosion. So I am taking time to laugh about it because that has not went under the radar for me. They can talk about the Super League all they want, but they have a 29-year-old or something, managing them at the moment with barely any experience. And you know, the Mourinho thing, it was a good time to do it, if they're just thinking about it from a PR perspective, because it just kind of got buried in all of the Super League talk. But we will get our time to laugh about that. So you guys take a moment just to laugh at Spurs and Mourinho, the gift that keeps on giving, and people always, well, Spurs, they're above us and all this type of stuff. I'm like, a team that just was in the Champions League final, basically the exact same team, and a world-class manager should be able to be more than 4 points away from Mikel Arteta in Arsenal. So it's not like this big thing that you should be celebrating that you're above Arsenal when you have this great and wonderful team that everybody rates so highly. Harry Kane, the best striker in the world, and Jose Mourinho, the best manager that ever lived, and you're just a couple points above Arsenal. Not something really to be, you know, laughing about or being confident in. Dev asks, if Kroenke sells the club, do we get rid of Edu, Arteta plus all other management, or stick with a few key figures? I think you keep Arteta. If Kroenke was to leave tomorrow, I would say you keep Arteta. But I think all of the management above him needs to be maybe not removed, but maybe just thought about a little bit deeper. I still have this weird feeling that we need somebody a little bit more experienced than Arteta and Edu somewhere in there. And you see that I don't know if this is just PR from United, just trying to get the United fans more excited, or back on side after this entire thing. But if they do get Edwin van der Sar, you can see that whatever you think about Edwin van der Sar, Ajax, the project, has been pretty successful for a while, so bringing in somebody that's not Ed Woodward and that's better than Ed Woodward is a good step for them, so if we were to get rid of Kroenke, I would like us to move in maybe a different direction with the director of football. I'm not sure about Vinay. I don't know what his contribution to all of this. He just kind of looks like a mouthpiece and somebody that they can get in front of the cameras to take the shots, so yeah, I think the management above, and getting better people on the board that are younger and more in tune with what's going on in football right now would be better for Arsenal. But I would probably just keep Arteta, to be honest. Flossneck says, yeah, Arteta got the whole Obama revolution in just over a year. That's so true. I mean, I look at him and I'm like, you're stressed, buddy. He's so stressed. I don't want that stress. AK Gunner says Mourinho win a trophy at every club, get to the Spuds, get sacks before the cup final. Exactly. They didn't even trust him to win the League Cup. It's just, it's funny. There's Mikel Arteta in the chat. Hi, Jess. Don't worry about Arsenal. We will win the Europa and get top 4 this season. And that's definitely something that I think we need to focus, get back focused on the, the goals that we have. We're still in the Europa League semifinal and we need to win it, so I'm hoping that the players are able to concentrate. They can feel a little bit more relaxed and be able to just get the job done. This has been a really big distraction and unnecessarily so. And we have so much on the line to be messing around like this. Let's see. Garrett says, keep Arteta, please. Alexander G says, Kane is a diver like Salah. I think most players are divers, to be honest. I mean, who do we know that doesn't? Most players look for a little bit of contact and then make a meal out of it to get, advantage for their team. It's just depending on what team they play for, it's more obvious to us. I mean, I watched Lacazette do some horrific diving last season, so the diving thing is not really the issue for me. It's the dirty tackles and, that kind of thing with me with Kane, and the fact that he's put on such a high pedestal. I do think he's a really good striker and one of the best in the league, but this whole best in the world nonsense, come on now. Come on. No. I see. Maybe we should go after Ed Woodward. No, thanks. Aaron says Mark Overmars would be much better than Adu, and he's free in the summer. I mean, I would consider anybody with actual experience, more experience than Adu, to be honest. We'll see what Adu can do over the summer. He may be able to prove me wrong. I mean, most of the transfers that we did this season or this summer were already pretty much put in motion by Raul, so I take that in consideration, and I'm like, okay, well, how much work did he do on them? The Gabrielle one was pretty much already in motion, and Thomas Partey, we just had to go and do the release clause. What I do like about what Adu and the team has done since then is get some of these younger players on longer term contracts. And I don't know if they've announced it yet, but Balogun has signed a new 4-year deal. So doing things like that gives me a little bit of confidence. But our recruitment needs to be so much better than it's been over the last couple of years. And with Adu, I'm not quite sure what his approach will be. We'll see it over the summer. And then from there, I guess we can kind of make a more educated guess on what direction we'd be going in under Adu. But if I had to just if somebody offered me somebody better or more experience right now, I'd probably take it, to be honest. Tony says Pepe never dives. I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm like, go down, just go down, but he doesn't. You're right. He doesn't actually do a lot of diving. I do think that when he's not in the box, sometimes he does look for fouls. I do see that, but he doesn't really dive in the box like the way I see other players do. He should dive. I think he should go down a little bit more. Does that sound bad? Maybe I should be saying that on a stream, like I want my players to start diving. But if you feel contact, I wouldn't be upset if you went down, So Pat Brady says Jack Wilshere is supposed to be going to the protest on Friday. I did see that. And having somebody like Ian Wright even come out and say Kroenke out, I think is a big deal. It shows how big this has gotten and how fed up people are. I think for a while, people, especially in the media and that create content, have been a little bit shy of saying Kroenke out because there could be potential repercussions for that, maybe career-wise or whatever, or they just kind of didn't want to ruffle any feathers. But seeing Ian Wright come out and say Kroenke out, seeing somebody like Jack Wilshere potentially going to the protest just shows me how fed up people actually are. And if he is there, send me pictures because you guys know I love Jack Wilshere too. Let's see. Ahmed says, thoughts on Alaba going to Madrid? I mean, that means surely one of Varane or Sergio Ramos is out, right? Because I don't think he would sign a 5-year deal knowing that he'd be somewhere on the bench, so not necessarily surprised that he's going there. I think that's a good fit for him. I didn't really see him in the Premier League. He needs a new challenge. I'm sure Toni Kroos maybe got in his ear and said, yeah, you should come here, because they both are obviously leaving Bayern. They left Bayern to go to Real Madrid. So I think it's a good move for him, but that leads me to be like, okay, so which one of Varane or Sergio Ramos is going to leave, because I'm sure Alaba will start, right? Tony says there's a difference between buying a foul and blatant diving. Okay, yeah, you're right about that. Buying a foul, feeling the contact is actually there, and going down to make sure that you get the call is definitely different than some of the things that Kane and Salah do on a normal basis. High C. Sorry if I botched that, but we'll be sad seeing Righty distance from the club duties because of that tweet. I mean, that's a big thing. That's a very, very big thing that I was thinking about. I was like, him saying that and being so visible and being so intertwined with Arsenal and creating content for Arsenal, being in and around the players and things like that. I'm him saying Kroenke out really could be something that distances him from the club. So I do believe that, he's taken a risk, but he also loves the club so much that he could not be silent on this. So that speaks to how big, this really is becoming. Let's see. Can't wait to put Ramos on a 500K a week 5-year deal. I mean, I hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were interested in Ramos. He would never come to Arsenal. Sean says, sometimes to get experience in a job is to be on job. In our daily lives, it's a disadvantage having no experience. I mean, yes, I do understand that, but having too many people in the club with no experience in high-powered positions in the financial position that Arsenal is in is a huge risk. So I'm okay with the idea of Arteta learning on the job because he's Arteta, he's the manager. But having every single person in a high-powered position, Edu and Vinay as well, learning on the job with bad ownership just feels a little bit risky for me, but I do understand that learning on the job is sometimes the best way to learn the job, or is the only way to learn the job. Yeah, but you guys, we've been going for about 45 minutes. I think I got through everything. Again, the protest will be at 6 p.m. I must have sneezed. 6 p.m. UK time at the Emirates. Be safe if you go out there. If you can be there, especially if you really want Kroenke out, and let's continue to put pressure on. I will be on BBC World Service at, what time is it now? In about 30 minutes, so if you want to tune in and hear what I got to say there, please feel free. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. The content has been a little off in the last couple of days because of the Super League news and all that, but we'll get back to something a little bit normal. We'll see what's going on, in the next couple of days and see if we can talk about actual football in the next couple of days, because we do play Everton on Friday, but I'm sure, there'll still be some Super League talk and, we'll kind of see, but I will be here tomorrow morning at about the same time. So look out for that. But yeah, you guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.